Welcome to the second half of 4.3, solving quadratic equations by factoring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually solve these equations. The equations on the previous page were not equations, they were actually expressions. So we were just factoring out the polynomials, and now we're going to use factoring in order to get an answer. So before you do anything, just like in graphing, your equations must be equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor this. So A is 1. C is negative 36, so I'm going to add my B value to be 0, and I'm going to multiply get negative 36. So what are the factors of 36 that add to be 0, but also multiply to get me negative 36? One must be positive, one must be negative, so this is 6 and negative 6. So factor in front is x. The number in front of x is 1, so a 1 in front of both of those, plus 6 minus 6. So what happens now, we take each of these equations, or parts, because we're going to apply the 0 property, product property from the front. If two things are multiplied to equal 0, then each one could or could not be 0. So when we have factored polynomial into its two terms, or parts, equal to 0, we set each part equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we are going to take x plus 6 equal to 0 and x minus 6 equal to 0. Solve it, you get x equals negative 6 or x equals 6. So on your answers, I would write my answer like that. That is your solution. That's how you solve. Alright, on this next one here, factoring here, greatest common factor, I have an x and I have a 12 and an 18. The greatest common factor goes in 12 and 18 is 6, so I'm going to pull 6x out of both of them. That leaves me with 2x minus 3 equals 0. 6x is the first product part, and 2x minus 3 is the second part, so I'm going to set each of them equal to 0. 6x equals 0. 2x minus 3 equals 0. X equals 0 here. 2x minus 3, add the 3, so showing all my work this one time. Divided by 2, x equals 3 halves. So my two solutions would be each one of those, or I like to write them as x equals 0, comma, 3 halves. And that would be your solution. The factoring here and this work here, until you tell me what x equals by themselves on the answer line, is not an answer. Alright, so D, this is not equal to 0, so I'm going to add my 72 over, so I have 2x squared minus 24x plus 72 equals 0. Greatest common factor between a 2, 24, and 72 is going to be a 2, so I have x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals 0, and there's a 2 in front. So I'm going to factor this part out, so this becomes factors of 1 times 36, so 1 times 36 is 36, that added to be negative 12. The factors of 36 that add up to be negative 12. That is a great question. So I don't know, so I'm going to check on my calculator. So 36 divided by 2, 18, 36 divided by 3, 12, that doesn't get me 12. 36 divided by 4, that gives me 13. 36 divided by 6 is 12. Oh, duh. Negative 6 and negative 6. See, even my brain doesn't work sometimes. Negative 6 and negative 6. So I get x minus 6 and x minus 6. So 2 equals 0, because that's a part of it. X minus 6 equals 0. And these two are the same, so I only need to do this once. This is not a true statement, so there's nothing I can worry about there. So my answer is just x equals 6. This is a double root. The reason why it's a double root is because it happens twice. It's just a good thing to know. You do have two answers, but this is when the vertex lies on the x-axis. So it happens only once because there's only one solution where it hits, but it technically hits there twice because it's the same answer twice. All right, last but not least, this one over here. We have everything 2, so I'm going to pull a 2 out. 6x squared minus x minus 1 equals 0. So multiply a times c is negative 6. That adds up to be negative 1. I'm going to have a 3 and a 2, and it's going to be a negative 3. So 2's in front equals 0. Negative 3, negative 2, so negative 3, positive 2. I said that wrong. Have it written correctly, though. So instead of guessing which factors of 6 go where, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop down this 6 in front of my x on both of these, and if I can divide common values out, then I will get my answers. So this first parenthesis, they're both divisible by 3. The second one, they're both divisible by 2. So dividing both of these by 3, I get 2x minus 1. And the second one, divide 6x by 2, I get 3x. Divide 2 by 2, I get 1 equal to 0. Still have that 2 in front. If I look at this really quick, 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And with my math and multiplying out, I get negative 1x. So I did factor correctly. Set each of these equal to 0. You have 2x minus 1 equal to 0. And you have 3x plus 1 equal to 0. Add the 1 divided by 2. I get x equals 1/2. Subtract the 1 divided by 3. I get x equal to negative 1/3. So those would be my two answers. All right. So last but not least, we got this wonderful word problem. Tamika wants to double the area of her garden by increasing the length and the width. So what's the dimensions of her new garden then? So currently, the area of her garden right now is 6 times 9. So 6 times 9 equals 54. If I double that, it'd be 108. So we know we want to double the area, so we get 108. And then what am I going to do in order to solve that problem out? Well, she wants to increase the length and the width by the same amount, so that means I'm going to add x to both of these. So in order to get the 108, we have to multiply these two values together. So we would have 6 plus x times 9 plus x. We're going to multiply these through, so we got to distribute. So 54, 6 times that. 6 times x is 6x plus x times 9, so 9x plus x squared equals 108. What I'm going to do is when I combine this, it's going to go x squared plus 15x plus 54 equals 108. All I did was reorganize this when I simplified. What I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 108 over, so I get x squared plus 15x minus 54 equals 0. So a times c would be a negative 54. That adds up to be a 15. So the factors of 54, I do not know off the top of my head besides 6 and 9. But a positive 6 and a 9 does not get you what I want. So I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to just start dividing out negative 54. So 54 divided by 3 is 18. And I just totally guessed right on that one. So 3 and 18 get me 15. 3 and 18. In order to get a positive 15, I need to have a negative. So when I solve this, x has a factor of 1 in front of it, so it's just an x minus 3. X plus 18 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And x plus 18 equals 0. So x equals 3 and negative 18. Now, logically, if I put negative 18 into this, so it means these original equations, that means I'm going to decrease my lengths instead of increasing. So negative 18 is not a plausible answer, so my answer would be 3. So x equals 3 is my answer for what I'm going to add, but it's asking what your actual dimensions are. So your new dimensions would be a 9 by 12 because I'm going to add 3 to both of those values. There you go. That's part 2.